So, in this very next podcast, you're going to hear from one of our business professionals because part of our podcast, Widow Wisdom and Wealth Thriving in Career and Parenthood After Loss, is that career part. How do we, as sole parents, and many of the listeners out here are divorced too, balance raising these kids while trying to excel in our career? And for many, that means leaving the old career behind and starting a new one. For many, that means entrepreneurship. So we can have some flexibility of schedule and also after this major life transition, ability to change our career and make it into a mission. It's exactly what I did after the loss of my first husband, Greg. And so Audrey Faust is a CFO who, well, let's just say she has a little bit of woo. She adds some very different techniques than the normal business owner hears or talks about publicly. And she helps us with everything from understanding beginning of our practices, the beginning of our business as an LLC, what should we keep track of for our finances, and also how do we get out of our own way a little bit in that mindset to make our business grow. So I'm so excited to give you one of our editions of our professional series here on Widow Wisdom and Wealth. I welcome everybody to the Widow Wisdom and Wealth podcast. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. Today we have a very special guest. So every now and then we take a break from our interviews to bring in a professional that we think can really help add value to our listeners' lives, help smooth the roll of some of those stop bumps, and really make us think of what's possible as we're trying to balance career and parenthood and blended families or soul families where we've lost a spouse or a caregiver. So today we are going to go ahead and introduce Audrey Faust. I messed it up the first time. We had to stop recording and jump back in. But I have known Audrey for a few years here. We are both authors. She is the author of She Grows Rich and also the owner of Audrey Faust as a business coach. She has Profitable Business Academy. And at the end of this podcast, you'll hear a new announcement of where the woo in Audrey's life has taken her and her business mission. So right now, her main vision and her main mission is to empower women entrepreneurs to master their money and live the life of their dreams. Welcome, Audrey. How are you today?
Hi, Donna. Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun that we get to just chat together on this podcast.
I love it. And I like how both of our backgrounds kind of blend together. It's going to look really great on YouTube.
We
Love
match.
But Audrey, one of the big things I wanted to have you really focus on is like myself, so many of my clients or my friends or the people that we're interviewing in widowhood or even in divorce, sometimes it's really hard on them financially. And sometimes it provides a financial, not even a windfall, but an opportunity to step away from their day to day to recreate their careers. And for many of those in widowhood, it has to happen because now they're the sole parent. And so maybe they need to change a job that was an overnight nurse, right? And so many people, because they have a little bit of financial resources, take this opportunity to really shift their lives, to make a job or a career change into entrepreneurship or into something that's more in line with their mission, giving a little bit more value. Or it might even be a change to entrepreneurship so they have a more flexible schedule. But for many, that can be really hard on the financial side because you can have a brilliant idea about what you'd love to change and bring value to in the world and not know how to do it financially. Are you ready to share some wisdom with us?
Absolutely, Donna. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's start first. Tell all the listeners a little bit about you and how you came to be the author that you know of She Grows Rich.
So I have been in the financial CFO controller world my entire career, which has been, 20 plus years. We'll keep the exact number quiet.
Oh, yeah.
But
we've
but
talked too many
anyway,
times about the change, so don't worry about it. I'll out us both.
anyway, that's funny. We I've been in that world working primarily with small business owners, and what I saw were the ones that grew and the ones that didn't grow, and the ones that grew and expanded and ultimately sold their businesses for a significant amount of money were the ones that understood the financial pieces of their business and could look at, a financial statement, a profit and loss, a balance sheet, a cash flow, and understand the information on there and be able to make business decisions based on that on a monthly basis. Not at the end of the year, not at the, whenever they felt like it, but really use those financial reports as a tool. And after working in the done for you world and seeing this, I realized the one thing that entrepreneurs, when they first start out, even in the first few years, they're not looking at that information, and most of the time they're not understanding it. And a lot of the times they feel bad about it because nobody teaches you. I say you get into entrepreneurship because you have a passion. There's something you're great at, and the number stuff just comes with it, like it or not. So I saw an opportunity to come out and help specifically women, business owners, understand those pieces so their businesses could thrive and grow and become profitable.
So, what would you think for someone who's like me when I first started out? Like, okay, now I'm a little different because I am a financial planner, but more than anything, it was I want a business for myself that I know I can grow, prove to myself I can do it, and that gives me the flexible schedule to go ahead and raise my kids. So, I need to understand the finances personally that I had, as well as the finances of what it was going to need to be in this business, to pay for my licensing, and then to finally hang my own shingle and have rent and have employees and have health benefits. So, for someone just starting on this journey, what like 3 tips do you have of advice of how to get started or who to align yourself with?
Well, first thing you want to do is make sure you keep business and personal separate. I see this in people that start out. I see this in people that have been in it for 10 years. They commingle the personal with the business. And there's a couple of reasons that that's not a great idea. First one is often businesses come out as an LLC because they don't want to lose any personal assets if something would happen in their business. If you're an LLC and you're commingling your stuff with your personal funds and your personal assets, you're nullifying the LLC. That's the first reason. The second reason is you're not going to get accurate information in order to make those decisions to grow your business, to know the number. I like to say the number to keep the lights on, right? Yep. What is that number you need to make every single month just to keep the lights on? You're not going to have any idea because everything's going to be jumbled together.
So I know a lot of people call it a pass-through business, right? So basically saying that that's what they call it, right? So all of the money that comes in, it's passing through what I make, what personally make, what the business makes is all one, right? And I love that you say that. Like, let's just have a separate journal, a separate bank account, a separate American Express that's in your name. It's going to be in your name anyway, but that way you and your accountant, when you can afford one, because you're doing it yourself probably in the very beginning, can have that simple steps, right? What do you think about having someone help you early on versus doing it yourself, and what systems are out there to do it yourself?
Well, I think everybody, if you have your own business, should have somebody qualified doing their taxes, like a CPA. Because there are things that you're not going to know. It's really hard to do your own tax return accurately if you aren't trained in that. So the CPA is technically going to pay for themselves in the end because they're going to know things you don't. Do you have to have a bookkeeper in the beginning? No. Do you can definitely do it yourself. And you mentioned my course, Profitable Business Academy. Inside my course, I teach you how to understand all of that, and you can do it yourself easily. And whether there's an Excel spreadsheet inside that course that you can use that, or there's a whole module on using QuickBooks. So, whichever you choose, you can definitely use an Excel spreadsheet to when you're in the beginning, when you're just starting out. As you want to grow and expand, then a software like QuickBooks might make more sense because it's going to make things quicker and easier for you.
I love that you share that. So, you've met my husband, I think, Jim, and his version of keeping track is a yellow notepad and like 40 million of those yellow notepads throughout the house. And when like we're tracking maybe he's a contractor by trade, tracking the cost of a job, it's all in yellow notebooks. I'm like, how do you compare like what it cost you for what you paid at Home Depot and what you're putting out? Like it drives me bonkers. So there I am with an Excel spreadsheet trying to figure it out. So thank you for telling people to start with good processes in the very beginning, whether you do it yourself, get the guides that you might be providing, get a book that might help you with it, right? Or get QuickBooks. One question I know listeners are going to ask me is, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but are you familiar with Profit First? And what's your outlook for that on a brand new entrepreneur?
Yes, I'm familiar with Profit First. My outlook is, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, it makes things a little bit more complicated than they need to be. It has you creating, I don't know, 5 or 7 bank accounts. It doesn't have to be that complicated. One of the reasons, I hate to keep going back to my course, but one of the reasons I created my course is because it educates you on what you need to know. Using 5, 7 different bank accounts, first of all, is a bookkeeper's nightmare.
Yeah. And I bring it up because I began my business with Profit First, and I love the theory behind it. But when I grew too big to be handling my own books, and I hired a bookkeeper and I hired an accountant, like you recommend, to have a business accountant, a personal accountant, hopefully the same person, right? That can just run everything together. Yeah. They usually are. They begged me to step away from it because of the crazy bank account. So what we actually did was consolidate everything in one, but we still had an Excel spreadsheet that followed that method so that I felt as if I had value as to where that Profit First was going. Does that sound consistent with what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I do like to have a separate bank account for tax savings. That is the only additional bank account. So if you're making a profit, you look at your profit every single month, and you can stick, depending on your structure, if you're an S Corp or if you're a sole proprietor, whatever your accountant says, you should stick away for taxes on your profit every single month. It could be 15% if you're like an S Corp, or it could be up to like 30% if you're a sole proprietor. So having that separate tax account alleviates a lot of stress and anxiety. Profit First kind of does that in its own way, but it also has all this other craziness that you're throwing money all over the place. But if you understand how to run a profit and loss statement for your business, whether you use an Excel spreadsheet or, QuickBooks, you really don't need to have all those bank accounts because it's all right there for you.
Well done. And don't ever apologize for mentioning your program, because that's the reason why you're sitting on this podcast. It's because you are the expert in how to do this. So we bring on the best when we can. We try.
Thank you.
So all right, so let's fast forward. Someone who's in their business about 5 years, right? And they're growing and they've done it on their own, maybe brought on some virtual assistants, and they want to scale. They want to go bigger. How does what you know as being someone who's a CFO really, how does that play? Or what advice do you have?
Yeah, so this is kind of when you would graduate if you were working for me from my course to one-on-one, or if you're coming to me at that level where you're ready to scale. Because one-on-one, I can really look at your financial information with you and we can make decisions. And I'm gonna bring in a story of someone that I worked with that may help you when you're looking to scale. Her name is Kim, and she's an interior designer. And she came to me after hearing me on a podcast, which is funny. And she came to me, and she had been in business for over 10 years. She had partners, and different partners were doing different things. And one by one, all the partners fell off, left the business, and here she was doing the business on her own. She didn't understand the financial pieces. She was trying to figure everything out on her own, which is another reason she came to me. And she was doing almost, I would say, somewhere around $1 million a year revenue. And She didn't understand the financial pieces. She had a team. She wanted to grow now that it was just her and she could make all the decisions. Like she really felt like it was the time for her to grow. But she really didn't know what to do or how to do it. So what I work with, and it's in the course as well as one-on-one, is we create a profitability blueprint. And I call it a blueprint. Some people might want to call it a budget, but it's not a budget. I hate the word
That's
budget.
the B word. It's the B word.
That's the B word. We don't use the B word.
Spending plan.
Yes, blueprint. I like calling it a blueprint. Plan,
Well
blueprint. And it's all your expenses, plus it accounts for taxes, plus it accounts for what you want to make, what you want to bring home, right?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, because we often forget about that. And we looked at that and we realized that, she wasn't making enough profit. She knew that, but she didn't know what to do, right? She was like, I'm barely paying myself anything. So we made a few tweaks and we looked at her capacity, and she had a junior designer at the time and a virtual assistant and herself. And her junior designer was actually leaving. And we had a discussion about her hiring a senior designer instead of a junior designer. And she was a little anxious about having a higher salary to cover. So we talked through it. I can't remember the exact amount. It was going to be maybe $10,000, $15,000 more than the junior designer. And I said, but what's it going to do? What's it going to free up for you? She goes, well, it's going to free up a lot if I have a higher level person in there. I'm like, so I talked her through the money mindset of hiring this higher level person that's then going to free her up. Then we took a look at her virtual assistant. I said, you're an interior designer. What is your virtual assistant doing for you? And she goes, well, she's really more like a project manager. And I'm like, well, how's that working out for you? And she says, not real good. She goes, it would be better for me to have somebody in my office that can kind of manage things in the office for me, because she did have a design office. And I said, so we literally took the virtual assistant, what she was paying her, and looked for a part-time project manager and she brought the part-time project manager in. So now she has this team that really didn't grow, but it morphed into something different. It's, a senior designer and a project manager. Great. She's like, this is who I need to support me. She practically doubled her revenue by changing her team. She went from $1 million a year to projected revenue in this year that's already booked is 1.9 million.
Awesome.
So just tiny little shifts like that, like when you have somebody from the outside looking in and saying, how is this working for you? Is this the best thing? Maybe we just make some tweaks. So when I get involved with clients like that and we look at the blueprint, those are the kind of decisions that you can make by looking at the numbers. Can you support? What kind of team can you support? What kind of revenue do you need to bring in to support this team? So, and she's got, for the following year, so for 2026, she already has almost $1 million booked for that year already.
That's amazing.
And we're not even halfway through 25. So
that's great. And I love the fact that you brought up two things. I hope we can expand on them. One, money mindset. And two, many of our listeners are well established in their career, but they've lost a spouse either through divorce or through widowhood. And they need to change their career a little bit. So let's say there are those entrepreneurs that are pretty well, just like the example you gave, they're established, right? And they're growing a little bit, but they need to pay themselves more, right? Or they know that soon alimony will run out or Social Security will run out, or maybe they're paying the alimony, right? And so now things have gotten a little bit tighter. And so they need to figure out how to pay themselves more. So that would be a great opportunity for someone to work with somebody like you as a CFO, correct? To say all right, how are we going to do this? What has to go? What has to streamline? What has to go file? So talk to us a little bit, because I don't bump into many CFOs that have so much woo. So asking you to please Describe a little bit of the woo. What does that mean? As well as when you talk about money mindset, because I think that's very, very key for many of our listeners because they've been through the ringer with life a little bit recently. And they're just trying to find the new rhythm, right? Or they've been in the rhythm and something's not working. But sometimes they have to get their money mindset right to get to the next step. So one, woo, two, money mindset.
So the woo is manifestation, and for me, a CFO, you a financial advisor, it's almost taboo, right? To like, talk about money manifestation and things like that. But the more I study it and the more I understand it, there's so much science behind it.
Yeah.
Like we're all made up of energy, and we're all and our energy and our thoughts, like, and the mindset goes hand in hand with it. And that's what I learned. Like if you're able to shift your money mindset, all of a sudden you're going to start changing everything, and it's going to feel like you're manifesting the world.
And I love that you are a trained neuro coach. So you can really help people with these mindset barriers, whether it be I'm not worthy, whether it be the money ideas that you have from growing up as a kid, right? How did you see your parents deal with money? To really maybe anything that just happened with the widowhood or divorce process, right? Like that changes a person often when their
Yeah.
streams of income dramatically shift. And sometimes while making decisions in grief, you're just grappling at that point in time. So I love that it's the work on really the core of the person you are and the decisions you're making. Um, I would like you to define, if you can, for the group, because some people who are listening who also don't have a lot of exposure to woo or manifesting are like, oh, I'm just going to sit there and meditate and ask for money to come in. I'm like, oh, God, no. It's like goal setting with some grit behind it. You got to work. So just talk on that a little bit so we can get some people to understand the manifesting word.
Yes. Well, actually, I'm going to share another story because, and you don't even know, this has kind of been happening behind the scenes in the last couple of months. I personally changed the structure of my business from the done for you CFO model into 100% coaching. And because I helped two businesses multi seven figure grow and sell, when they sold, ironically, right around the same time, I decided not to go with them and focus 100% on the coaching. Well, that was retainer income that was a significant amount of money that my business depended on. So there was a little bit of money mindset scarcity going on with me. I'm
That
going to
means
say
she
a
was a
lot.
scared people. She was a scared. Okay, go ahead. Use your big words. You were scared.
I was scared as whatever, explicit. um, and I really felt into this energy and mindset and tapping, emotional freedom tapping, which is energy work. And I became like obsessed with emotional freedom tapping, right? Am I
Technique.
saying that right?
Yeah, EFT.
Technique. Thank you.
Yeah.
EFT, people, the short term is tapping. And it changed my life during that transition period. So then I brought it into my work. And when I brought it into my work, it changed the lot. Like I use it with the neuro coaching and the money mindset, with the tapping. And I did it under the radar with two friends, and boom, they took off. Their businesses took off. One girl, she tripled her revenue. She went from $5,000 months to $15,000 months. Like it was just amazing. Now I'm offering it as a program. It's selling like hotcakes. But yes, I'm opening up to the woo, the energy work, all of that, or what people call woo, but it's really energy and we're all made up of energy. And the more I study it and the more I understand it, it just makes so much sense to me. And there's a lot of science behind it, even though people like to think, like you said, meditate and manifest. What keeps us from taking action is the mindset and the energy. And if we can release both of those, like, then we want to take action. We're not just going to sit there and meditate. We're going to be like, oh my God, how can I make this work? I'm so excited about what I'm doing, and that's kind of where it comes in. You don't have to force the action anymore. The action just naturally happens.
Yeah, we've shared many conversations before that I've used tapping for years. I'm so quiet about it because I don't think it's so readily acceptable. So now everyone knows. And even my own family didn't realize that I did this tapping on a daily or a weekly basis. But I always say it's a way to get myself out of my own way. Right. Like after
100%.
the loss of my first husband and it was a suicide, I've shared very openly that like I felt pretty worthless. And so even when you
I'm
start
sure.
moving forward, it still sticks in there, right? So how do we get that piece,
Yes.
move it out of the way? Because it was a feeling, but I truly knew I was capable of much more, right? So that was my block, right? And so tapping through it, you start to think at the very end, like, wait, why did I think that? Right? Here we go. And
Right.
that's when the
Yeah.
release happens. So I always say tapping is getting out of your own way. That's my paraphrase for it. So
100%. And it's, so the first thing that I got coaching on tapping on was the fear of the unknown, like huge fear for me.
right.
And I had this fear, of course. I learned this through my neurocoaching. All our fears, all our baggage, we're carrying that around from our childhood. And we may not know why or understand why, which is where the neurocoaching comes in. And that's how I pull it out, right?
It's
I
not
pull out all
blaming your
those
mom and
beliefs.
dad. Not blaming your mom and dad. It's just what has happened through childhood. So
And it isn't blaming, because what you could interpret from your mom and dad could be something totally different than your brother or sister interprets.
agreed.
It's just how you're wired and how you're interpreting it. So what happened to me when I was young was I had a father who suffered from bipolar disorder, and the unknown was freaking scary.
Yeah, the next day that you didn't know what it was going to look like.
Yeah, I never knew when he was going to have a manic episode. And to me, they were super scary as a child. So, with the help of a coach, I uncovered that myself and we tapped through that. And now that and it released this fear of the unknown. And my whole life, ironically, at one point my title was controller, right? My kids thought that was the funniest thing on the earth because, but that was my way to deal with life, was to control it, because then I knew what was going to happen. Having the retainer income was a way of me knowing I could support myself and my family every single month. When that went away, the coaching income, that's not retainer. I don't know what's coming in every single month. So there was a lot of fear. And when I released that fear and I finally got rid of that belief from childhood, like, oh, it was so freeing, huh? It was just so freeing.
Yeah, it really allows you to expand and grow. So I
Yeah.
love that you brought up too, like that the kids make fun of you as a controller. So what I know about you personally is that you ran your own business, your husband had his own business, and you raised all these kids and plus managed in-laws and everybody else in the neighborhood. So for our listeners, many of them are probably new or maybe a few years into this, balancing their career and raising kids. Tell us a little bit about some of the tips of what worked for you. We love ending these podcasts with a little personal story.
Sure. So what worked for me is when my kids were little, I mean, I I needed to make income to help support the family. And went back to school as an adult to get my accounting degree. And I kind of fell into my own bookkeeping business in the process. My husband had his own business as well, as you mentioned. And I ended up doing the bookkeeping for him and I liked it. And I went back to college and said, you know what, I'm going to get an accounting degree because I want to be able to financially support my family, myself better. And I kind of fell into a bookkeeping business on the side and it grew. But what had happened was great because I had three kids, all within 4 years of each other. And like daycare was not feasible.
Yep.
Ch
That's a
childcare
mortgage
was
payment with those many.
right. That just, I couldn't make enough money to support three kids in daycare. And so what I had done is I kind of fell into this bookkeeping business and I would go out. My mother-in-law at the time would watch the kids one day a week when I first started. So she would take the kids one day a week and I would go out to places one day a week and then work from home a little bit here and there. When they were super little, before they were in elementary school, I maybe worked 15 hours a week. But it was enough to keep a little bit of money coming in, my mind happy, and, it was flexible. So that went on until they were all in elementary school and it organically just kind of grew overnight. And then I started going out and working at different businesses 4 days a week. And then I would work from home one day a week because there was always the chance that one of those kids was going to get sick.
Yep.
So I would flip flop a day, and just, and go to different businesses. And if one of them got sick, I always had that one day I could flip around and work from home. So I did that for 10 years while the kids were little and getting them through like elementary school and all of that. And it was a great little business and I was able to make a decent amount of money.
So I love that you shared that you leaned into the community, right? And that you made sure there was some flexibility in your schedule. Because I know we're almost the same age. Back then, like you really was hard. There was no 2020, everyone works from home Zooming. Like you had to be many of times in a brick and mortar. So you were actually a pioneer for being able to do it from home because a lot of people weren't able to. So that's a really great tip of leaning into the community, having your mother-in-law watch a few days, for having flexibility in your schedule so that you can be the mom that's homesick with them when they have to be. And I appreciate you sharing that story, that it wasn't always like Audrey, the CFO, right? That it was Audrey balancing three kids in 4 years, a husband's business, and figuring out what worked and really what fed your soul, right? You're like, oh, I like doing books for him. I think I'll go do that. Because so many of us early on take jobs that were just a major that we decided on when we were 18. And then it's a little later in life when we have these big transitions that we can really find what we want to do, find what we want to do that's more than just a career. So I appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom. Any final thoughts you want to share with listeners? Any big announcements?
Oh yeah, there you go. All right, she's pulling it out of me. So I'm rebranding. You guys are going to be the first people to know, other than my website designer already knows, is that we're already working on it, that I'm changing my business to the Manifesting CFO, and I'm going to be creating a podcast in the near future that's all going to be bringing in the business finance stuff with the woo, the magic, the money mindset, the energy. I just felt called. I felt so aligned, really, not even called, just aligned when I let go of the retainer clients who were more corporate, right? And I felt like I stepped into this coaching 100% and all of a sudden this energy work came to me and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so aligned with who I am. I've been, a closet manifester and woo person for spiritual person for the last 7 or 8 years. I believe in the law of attraction, and I kind of hid that as a finance person. And I finally decided, you know what, I'm just going to bring it all out there. And I probably wouldn't have done that if I still had the corporate retainer clients. And really I'm just stepping into it.
So stepping away from that little stability that you had is now opening the doors, right, for you to move forward. And I love that. And I love that it's the CFO role. How do we do our money? How do we do it in our business? But also getting yourself, because for many of us, we are our business. And until everything is kind of clear and copacetic within is when we can really shine. Actually inspired inside is when we can shine.
Yes.
Oh, and
yes,
thank you for
100%.
announcing it here with us and for sharing your experiences and your wisdom with all of our listeners. It's been a pleasure, Audrey. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.